Tonight, I saw one of the last 2015 films directed by women that has been released. It came out last Friday. I finally got to see it at the final screening at the Lemley NoHo. It's written and directed by Diane Bell. Diane Bell um, has done many things in her life. She's very interesting. Wikipedia. She wrote a film called Obsolidia that did well at the Sundance Film Festival a few years ago and was nominated for several uh, Independent Spirit Awards. I can't find it, so I'm like fascinated. So her second film is Bleeding Heart, which I just saw. The poster is terrible. Don't judge it by its poster. The poster is really, really bad. It's a bad poster, like tisk. The poster that came out with it when it premiered in Tribeca in April, it's a very nice poster and more true to the tone of the film. The poster that like some genius marketer decided they should go with for the theatrical run is god awful. Ugh. So, anyways, this film stars Jessica Biel as a 30-something yoga instructor who has recently hired a private investigator to find her biological sister, as Jessica Biel's character, May, was adopted, but she's discovered that she has a biological sister. So she goes to find her. She's played by Zosia. I'm not saying this right. Zosia Mamet from Girls. And she is in an abusive relationship, quite possibly being forced into prostitution. It's not a pretty picture. And so the Biel character wants to try to sort of help her. And it goes through phases. Like, it starts out, they just want to be, she just wants to meet her, and then she wants to spend time with her, and then the more she sees of this, like, abusive relationship that her sister is in, the more she wants to really help her get out of it. But what I thought was particularly well done in this film was to show how these sort of abusive relationships can sort of be a cycle that's really hard to break and really hard to help a woman in this situation. She even at one point, is going to call the police, and her sister, and her name is Shiva. It's just like, what's the point? Like, what are they going to do? And it's kind of a throwaway line, but at the same time, you're like, there's so little that gets done because the laws are still so fucked in terms of domestic violence. And just the fact that, if a man wants to break the law and kill you, he will. And, a law doesn't actually protect you in the form of like a, shield. So, it shows that. But the other thing that I thought was great was that Jessica Biel's character had a boyfriend. They were building their like yoga empire together. And while he's not a bad guy so much, he's one of those guys that just does not listen and does not put his partner and what her priorities are and what she cares about. He doesn't make that his priority, and he just doesn't listen. And it gets really frustrating because it's not, you see the one woman with this physically and verbally abusive man who's abusive at all times, and then you see Biel with this guy who's probably a nice guy, but he's just not listening to what she's trying to say, and he's not seeing the danger that her sister's in, and it's so frustrating because it's so real that so much of what women go through gets ignored, and people don't listen, and they say, oh, it can't be that bad, and then that's how women die. Like, I believe the highest murder rate for women is their partners in America, because that's, it's an epidemic, and it's terrible. I was reading about gun laws in terms of domestic abusers, and it is atrocious what some of these laws are, and some of them are only laws if you're married to the person. So it's like, If you're unmarried, fuck you, basically, is what the law says. It's horrible. So I know this film got really mixed reviews, and I'm not sure. I don't think this is not a great film, but it's not a bad film at all, and it's got two really powerful performances. And while it's not like the most subtle film in the way it tells its story, it's telling such an important story and in such a deft way that I think sort of getting the short end of the stick in terms of reviews. But I don't know. I don't know how people are going to see this movie. Hopefully it'll show up on Netflix or something at some point. And I will then remind everyone, and you guys can watch it, kind of like Fort Bliss. Fort Bliss is another great film, written and directed by a woman, that barely played in theaters. Came out last year. You should watch it. That one's on Netflix. But this one is called Bleeding Heart. Came out last week. Written and directed by Diane Bell, starring Jessica Biel, Zosia, Mamet. Oh, and then the men are played by Joe Anderson from Across the Universe, and Eddie Gathegi, who is in Twilight. So it's always fun to see him. He's got a great face. So I recommend this if you can find it. It's probably not playing anywhere anymore, which is kind of a bummer. But it should show up for rent and stuff soon. And then if you see it, you should, for rent, you should rent it because it's good and has an important story to tell. And I think it's done really well. I only really have one complaint. She's driving around in this really nice vintage car and parking it in really sketchy places, and she never locks it. Never locks it. And I know that's not very cinematic to lock your car, but I kept worrying her car was gonna get stolen. Just either show her pushing the lock in, or as soon as she walks out, cut to something else so that you don't know if she locked the car or not. That's my solution for that. Lock the car. It's a really nice car. Sorry, that was a PS on this. This is Diane Bell's Bleeding Heart, and it's much better than you'd think it would be based on the poster. That is terrible.